Shalom, friends. Rob Vanoff here with TelosTorah. Here we're going to look at Exodus 24, 9 through 11. Great passage here from this week's Torah portion, which is Parashat Mishpatim, extending from Exodus 21 through 24. I'm going to look at the Hebrew. We'll read through the Hebrew here, and I have the NASB to the right. Then we're going to look at the the NETS, New English Translation of the Septuagint. So it's an English translation from the Greek, and that translation is available online for free. If you just Google NETS, you can read the entire Septuagint in a fairly updated English translation with introduction commentaries. If you just Google NETS Septuagint or something, you'll go to the master website. I think it might be Oxford University. But here, let's look at this. Exodus 24, 9 through 11. Vaya'al Moshe v'Aharon Nadav v'Avihu. So notice the verb Vaya'al, and he went up. It's singular. Vaya'al Moshe v'Aharon Nadav v'Avihu. Moses went up, as did Aaron, Nadav and Avihu, but they're actually in word pairs. Moshe v'Aharon, so Moses and Aaron, comma, Nadav v'Avihu, Nadav and Avihu. So this is another example. We see this a lot where the verb will be singular, but the subject is plural. So, and Moses went up, and Aaron, Nadav and Avihu. And there's even more. Shiv'im mizikenei Yisrael, and 70 from the elders of Israel. So quite a lot. How many people are in the subject here? Moses, Aaron, Nadav, Avihu, that's 4, and then 70 more. So 74 people go up, but the just verb is singular. Vaya'al. We're going to continue on. Vayire'u et Elohei Yisrael. And they, here it's plural. So it's all 74. Vayire'u et Elohei Yisrael. And they saw the God of Israel. Pretty awesome. Vayire'u et Elohei Yisrael. V'tachat raglav. And under his feet, kema'aseh livnat hasapir. As the work of, I like NSB as pavement of sapphire, livnat hasapir, che'etzim hashamayim latoha, and as the etzim of the heavens, which is the essence of the heavens, for purity, or latoha for tehorah is purity. So purity. So we're seeing under his feet, it was like a ma'aseh livnat sapir. It was like that, and it was like the purity of the heavens. It's not saying it was the purity of the heavens or that it was pavement of sapphire, but it was like these things. But notice the 24:10 starts off Vayireu et Elohei Yisrael. And they saw from Lirot, Resh Aleph Hey. They saw. And then our last verse here, 24:11. Oops, let me lower it a little bit more. Ve'el atzilei b'nei Yisrael lo shalach yado. And towards or against these nobles, the Atzilim here, the Atzilei b'nei Yisrael, the nobles of the children of Israel, he did not stretch out his hand. So shalach yado is an idiom to mean to act in order to harm. He didn't intend harm on them. He didn't go to strike them. And then it says again, but with a different verb, from this time chazah, to see, Vayechezu et ha'elohim, and they beheld God. Vayochlu vayishtu, and they ate and they drank. So we have two times here we're told in 24:10, Vayireu, and they all saw Elohei Israel, and then there in 24:11, Vayechezu et ha-Elohim, and they ate and they drank. So that's what we're confronted with here. Verse 10, they saw the God of Israel, and then they saw God. Now, in the NASB, they use saw both times in the English, when in Hebrew it's actually different root. In 24:10, it's Resh Aleph Hey, to see, and Chazah, Het Zion Hey. That's where we get the word Chazon, like the first word of the book of Isaiah, right, is Chazon. This is the vision of Isaiah, the vision which Isaiah saw. So the nuance here is maybe beheld in the sense of a special vision. They were having a special vision of some sort. This was not a normal thing, but it implies prophetic vision. And it says, Vayochlu vayishtu, and they ate and they drank. So this is an amazing picture here. And I'm reminded of what Yeshua says in Matthew 8 when he's talking about the centurion who has great faith. He says, many will come from the east and west and will sit, they will recline at the table with the patriarchs, with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob in the kingdom of God. That's a pretty amazing picture, isn't it? To some sort of celestial banquet, if you will, with all the people of faith from with the fulfillment of the Abrahamic covenant. That is, in your seed, all the nations of the world will be blessed. Nivrechu v'cha kol mishpachot ha'adama, I think is how it goes. All the nations of the world, or all the families of the world, will be blessed in you. And that promise is fulfilled in Yeshua. So we have to remember that in chapter 8 of Matthew, when Yeshua talks about this meal, this great heavenly meal with the patriarchs, Yeshua certainly is also at this same banquet. So, but let's look. We can look here. I'm going to flip it over now. We're going to look on the right-hand side. We're seeing the NETS. That's the New English Translation of the Septuagint. Notice what the Septuagint does. So if we date this to about 250 BC, the Greek translators are a bit uncomfortable, it would seem, that's my suggestion, with this passage, and they modify it. You know, some people say, oh, the Masoretic text, is modified from the Greek reflects the pure translation of the real ancient Hebrew, which is lost. So we can't trust the Masoretic. We have to trust the Septuagint. Well, look at what happens here. Moses and Aaron and Nadav and Aviud and 70 of the elders council of Israel went up. Okay, so far so good with verse 9. But you go to verse 10, they saw the place where the God of Israel stood. They saw the place where the God of Israel stood. That's what the Septuagint says. Now, the Masoretic text just says, Vayireu et Elohei Israel. And the God of Israel, and they saw Elohei Israel, the God of Israel. Isn't that awesome? It's straight and to the point. The scribes preserve it because that's what's there. They're not trying to change it. The Septuagint translators, however, the Greek Jews who are translating this are like, we can't say that. We can't even know how to explain that. So we're gonna interpret it for our Greek readers. Our Greek readers can't see our God. We don't want people to think that. So we're gonna say, we're gonna put a whole phrase here. They saw the place where the God of Israel stood. So you have to you think about that. Which do you think is the original? Do you think the Masoretes didn't like this phrase, place where the God of Israel stood, and so they subtracted it and just made it, and they saw the God of Israel? Or do you think it's more plausible that the Greek translators here thought, we're going to pad this a little bit? I'm on the latter side there. I think they padded it. And then notice here what they did in verse 11, or the Hebrew, again, like we saw before, Vayechezu et ha-Elohim, and they beheld the God of Israel. Notice the Greek changes it, and they appeared in the place. So they have en topos here. Topo, actually, because it's I believe it's the dative. So en totopo, in the place of God. They appeared in the place. So again, is this something that was in the original Hebrew, the place of, and in verse 11, and the place where he stood in verse 10, and then the Masoretes cut that out? Or do you think the Septuagint translators padded that because they didn't know how to make sense of it, or they didn't want to have to explain it somehow? Well, my view is that the Septuagint padded those there. And if we go back here, though, the NASB just shoots pretty straight, except, like I pointed out, the NASB uses saw in both verse 10, they saw, and they saw, where the Hebrew verb is different. So it's two different Hebrew verbs, ra'ah, lir'ot, to see, and chazah, chet zayin he, to see, as in a vision. And they're both, this is true, that this is an explanation or description of what happened. God did not, obviously this is something that is not normal, because the Torah tells us here, it says, Ve'el atzilei b'nei Yisrael lo shalach yado. Against these nobles, these 74 of the children of Israel, he did not raise his hand, that is, to strike them. So there was shalom. How do we know there was shalom? Because vayochlu vayishtu, they ate and they drank. So this is a picture of this eschatological banquet. It is a foreshadowing of a future celebratory time of peace and relationship of shalom between God and his people. Again, I'm reminded of Matthew 8 and that awesome vision, which is Yeshua gives us, which is forward-looking. It's forward-looking. It's not backward-looking. When we talk about reclining with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob in the kingdom of heaven. Pretty awesome image that I'm quite fond of, especially that Yeshua is saying that they're all reclining together. That means those who are of the natural stock of Abraham and those who are grafted in, but they're all sitting together. There's no better place for Jew than Gentile or anything like that. There's no, it's not divided that way. It's all are sitting together, reclining together. And it's a wonderful image. And okay, well, shalom, friends. I hope that these two little videos, this one here and the one I did on Rob on the Rock, will just contribute to your thoughts and considerations and meditations on this week's Torah portion. All right, friends.